Good afternoon, Mr. DeJoy. In August of last year, I sent you a letter signed by 76 members of Congress asking for the Postal Service to proactively implement OSHA's proposed rule that would protect workers from the extreme heat. And the response was, you declined. And that's frustrating and confusing to me, so that's some of the questions I want to ask you about today. Being a congressman from Texas, my letter carriers talk about being able to fry an egg in their unair-conditioned vehicles on a hot day. Coming from labor before I was an elected official, part of my job, tragically, was to organize funerals and memorials for workers that work in the outdoors in places like Texas that when they get denied a water break or overstress in the heat can get hurt or die. The proposed OSHA rule, to be clear, would apply to most of the private industry and to the Postal Service, and it's pretty simple. It would just require that when the temperature gets above 90 degrees, workers are able to take a 15-minute break every couple hours and have water readily available to them. We know how important this kind of protection would be for postal workers on any given day. We know that people like Eugene Gates, who was a longtime Postal Service employee, longtime letter carrier, tragically lost his life due to heat stroke, carrying mail in Texas in the 104-degree heat last year. Also the case for Wendy Johnson, a USPS worker in North Carolina who lost her life inside of a metal USPS truck in 95-degree heat just this last year. And that's just two of over 170,000 American workers who are injured and killed because of heat stress on any given year. You could have agreed to use the proposed Department of Labor rule that's gone under extensive review, but instead you declined any voluntary changes. Essentially, the letter said that OSHA would have to force the USPS to do this kind of protection for USPS workers. So I would like an explanation to it, but then my first question for you is also in your response, you said the Postal Service already has a heat prevention plan for workers and says in the letter, quote, that it is recognized as extremely successful. The current USPS plan has a mandatory annual heat illness training for workers, which is supposed to allow letter carriers to take breaks to cool down from the heat. But last year, the press investigated and reported that there were thousands of letter carriers across at least 10 states who didn't receive the training, but and they found fake records saying the Postal Service had provided that training. So do you think I've summed this up appropriately, Mr. DeJoy, or do you have concerns about what you've heard about in the press about the fake records about heat protection for workers? And can you talk to me a little bit about what steps y'all are taking?
We don't believe that the records were fake. They were batch loaded. Instead of individually loaded. So we think the press report was inaccurate. Was my briefing on that situation. With regard to the OSHA, it's something that's in process of being studied. We have our own program, which has been here for decades and has been reviewed and negotiated, and with the involvement of our unions and so forth, and it's recognized as a good program. If the OSHA plan comes out and gets approved, we'll evaluate aspects of that and maybe incorporate it into our plan. So certainly we have many carriers that go out in heat, in areas of heat, and we have these unfortunate issues, often where people have underlying health issues that have this unfortunate outcome that we have. But we feel getting new vehicles with air conditioning in them will be a big help. We're pushing to do that. But we'll study the plan. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of things, and a lot of things that have been around for a long time.
Understood, Mr. DeJoy.
A lot to change.
And I think amongst all of those things, we know that the lives and health and safety, including of your employees with underlying health conditions, which of course is so many Americans, should be of tantamount importance. And so whether or not this Politico investigation across multiple states showed falsified heat records or not, I hope that you'll reconsider this decision, because some places in Texas aren't going to get the new vehicles for years. Yeah. And that's if members on the other side of the aisle don't try to defund those vehicles. And so I hope you will take a look with worsening summers, with 2 of your own employees having died here, that we take this really seriously and you reconsider, because I can tell you right now that if I was sitting on that side of the desk, I would raise my hand and swear an oath that I'd spoken with your own employees who've told me they've been reprimanded for going off route to get a drink of water, that they've gotten in trouble for trying to take a break. And whether or not that's your intention, I hope that you really look into it and do everything you can. I know that it's not your intention, to be clear. I know it's not your intention, but I hope that you do something about it. Honestly, it would really, really make a big difference. Chairman, I yield back.